Thank you. Okay, so welcome. This is the first quarter membership meeting of Colorado Composting Council. And let me find my agenda here. There it is. Okay, so a number of us are fresh back from Daytona, Florida, where the Compost 2024 annual USCC conference was held. And I just want to spend a few minutes going over conference highlights. Sandy and I were so there's a part of the conference is to have a chapter track. So members of each chapter, I believe there's 15 chapters now, maybe 16. Georgia just announced 16 state chapters. So each chapter is required to send a member to the chapter track where we discuss chapter specific things. So I want to spend a few minutes between me and Sandy going over a couple things from the chapter track. And we did tag team a bit. So I'm going to hand it to Sandy first because there was maybe the meatiest thing was a presentation on staying clear of legal issues. So Sandy, could you give a little thumbnail of what you discussed there?
Yeah, for sure. Not to put like the fear of legal issues into anyone, but it was definitely a little bit illuminating to kind of learn about where we might have any legal liability and what we should and shouldn't do and what we should be kind of aware of as we go forward. But we are, basically by extension through Recycle Colorado being our fiscal sponsor, we're basically, under that same 501c3 status that Recycle Colorado is under. And as such, we need to really just be careful not to do more than that tax exempt status allows us to do. So some of the biggest advice that the attorney, who is super knowledgeable and super actually put a little bit of the fear of God in me too about legal issues, but she was very good. She did mention that the best way to just steer clear of these kind of issues is to stay focused with why we formed and not to lose sight of that big picture by trying to do too much that would take us out of other kinds of legal parameters of being a nonprofit organization. And that doing strategic planning really helps to keep us on track with that. So, and we're pretty good about that. So one of the bigger takeaways I got in just learning about legal matters around 501c3s or what are considered like the 3 fiduciary duties to be aware of, which those in the legal realm probably understand the duties of care, loyalty, and obedience, all which sound very strange, but care is just being a steward and doing due diligence and using good business judgment. Loyalty is acting in the best interests of the organization, avoiding conflicts of interest and maintaining confidentiality. And obedience is being faithful to your mission and your purposes and following your governing documents and any external laws and rules. And those are kind of the biggest takeaways for me, are just these fiduciary duties and basically all the things that we're already doing, but just always good as a reminder to know that not doing, your due diligence to maintain these fiduciary duties can open us up to legal liability. So that's basically what I learned in that class in terms of where we stand as the COCC. So I will try to answer questions as a not lawyer if anybody has any, but or if there's anything anybody wants to add.
So Sandy, we are due for reviewing our operating agreement with Recycle Colorado. Do you have specific takeaways of things that need to be on our to-do list?
Well, I think per some of the emails just recently between you and I and the Recycle Colorado folks, I am just trying to make sure that any coverage, maybe like insurance coverage or extension of protections for conflicts of interest and things like that are are extended to us through Recycle Colorado, through our agreement with Recycle Colorado. And that's not like called out in the operating agreement, because that's not exactly what kind of agreement that is. So I'm trying to determine what it is that we need to make sure that we're covered through Recycle Colorado for legal matters that are beyond just our operations. So that's kind of where the research I'm at right now, and I haven't really answered all those questions yet. So, Jennifer, question?
Yeah, I was just curious when you said cannot do more than what a 501c would allow. If they gave you some examples, I'm kind of assuming that it probably has to do more around campaigning and fundraising. Those seem like the two most like easily lines that you could cross on accident. But maybe there was another example that they gave you.
Yeah, I think that those were the biggest examples that they brought up a lot about around lobbying and extending our influence further than we're supposed to or allowed to. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Liz.
Thanks so much, Sandy. Thanks for going to that and bringing that information back and keeping the dialogue going about updating the operating agreement. My understanding, also not a lawyer, my understanding is because the Colorado Compost Council does not have bylaws or your own board of directors, you are entirely under Recycle Colorado. You are considered part of Recycle Colorado. So it's our insurance and our 501c3 status that makes contributions to COCC tax deductible. They're technically donating to Recycle Colorado, and then we are redirecting those funds to COCC. And any sort of legislative or any sort of litigation that were to come forward, it would be our board of directors that would be on the hook for that, which is one of the reasons why our board of directors is very conscious about making sure that we're all staying within the guardrails of the operating agreement. And I see Jamie wants to jump in.
Does this have any changes for lobby day next week?
It should not. Lobby day is part of what we factored into our allotment. We try and stay well under half of what we're allotted to do, and lobby day is factored into that. But great question.
Yeah, thanks, Liz, for jumping in with those clarifications. Per the emails you've probably seen, that's kind of what I was getting at. And maybe that will save me from having to read through all many pages of the PPP now. So, but I do want to look at that too. So that's great to know. And we will continue to review the operating agreement for this year as well. Dan and I have just kind of gotten started on that, and we can certainly bring it back to the group if anyone's interested. But we're just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page with that too. So.
Okay, anyone else? Ready to move on. Okay. And by the way, if I don't see your hand raised, it's because I have the view so that I can see my minutes. I just have one screen. So if I'm ignoring you, just jump in. Okay. Other notes from the chapter track. I just wanted to share that there's a brand new chapter that really blew me away. That's Florida. And they just had a lot of energy in general, which was noticeable, but also I thought that some of their website just looks really good, and some of the tools that they have for tabling and so on were really great, especially considering they're a brand new chapter. So I noted this last year, but I'm going to say again, I think at least at this conference, if not other times of the year, maybe the RC conference, it's handy to have a couple of t-shirts that just say, have our logo or whatever else we want to add. Just to be able to identify our chapter. And some other tabling tools. We just got a table cover cloth that Ali ordered, so that will help. We're starting to do outreach with groups such as the conservation districts. If you've attended this meeting before, you know that a focus that we have with COCC is trying to make more connection to related groups such as agriculture as a key end user of compost. And since there are some new tools to promote compost use and other regenerative agriculture practices in agriculture now, it's worth, it's a very good time to be reaching out to those folks. There may be other tabling that we want to do, such as I know that the A1 folks religiously go to the landscape. They reach out to the landscaping sector, and I think that's something that we may want to do as a group in the future. So I think I committed probably the last quarterly meeting and not done it. I committed to laying out a brochure that is specific to the soil health benefits. I know that probably as individuals, some of us have that type of brochure already, but we need a COCC branded brochure that we can hand to someone at a soil conservation district meeting or whatever. So specific to, not, hey, we are the COCC, as much as, start using STA compost. So we do have that brochure slowly in the works. I will, it's going to be at the top of my to-do list after March 1st. So I will get to that. Another thing that I wanted to mention as that I thought was very effective that Florida did is they have testimonials on their website where I think they're just like, maybe they're 15 minutes long. They have a handful of members saying, hi, I do this. I'm a member because of this. And then they all end with, I'm so-and-so from such and such, and I'm a proud member of the Florida Composting Council. And it sounds kind of corny, but I think it's a really great way to add some personality to your website. So that's something that I'd be really interested in doing. Sandy and Ali have been busy working on our website, and we will go over that in a little bit here. But I'll just throw out these things, and then at the end of the meeting, let's circle back. And if anyone wants to say, hey, that's a good idea, let's do X, we'll have that opportunity at that point. The last thing that I will mention for the conference, specifically the chapter track, is, as with every year, there is a hope that we will participate as a chapter in International Compost Awareness Week. Oh geez, does everyone need the minutes in the chat? I see a lot of folks are in here. The link is in the chat. I'm sorry, is in the minutes. And if someone wants to put the minutes in the chat, the minutes link in the chat, that might help somebody if they're trying to figure out what I'm talking about.
Allie's already on it.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, International Compost Awareness Week. It is always the first full week in May. That's May 5 to 11 this year. I think we have always kept it pretty simple in our chapter. Yet I think it's effective and useful, where we encourage each other to do our own events for that week, whatever that might be, or a social media post or whatever. but then if we can, combine our, certainly if we're doing an event, let us know so that we can co-promote it. And just, let us know what let's coordinate as a chapter for what we want to do with ICAW. I believe we do have a standing committee for this. I don't remember off the top of my head who is on that committee. If anyone wants to say anything about it, I'll
Dan,
hand
I
it
can
off to you.
jump. I can
Awesome.
jump in, Dan. Yeah, because I
Thank
know
you.
I'm pretty sure it's me and Megan Eibach and Sean Bruckman. I'm trying to think who else. We do have 50 posters coming of the new poster that has been picked. So those can be distributed around Colorado. They're great for putting up on senators' doors. There's great opportunities there. Last year we did a proclamation, and I'm trying to remember who led the effort on that proclamation from last year. I'm spacing it off the top of my head, but that
Naomi.
was Naomi. Thank you.
Mhm.
That was awesome and incredible. So yeah, be happy to work with Sean and Megan and get some communication out. But yeah, it's a great time to celebrate International Compost Awareness Week, and it's growing and growing. I can't stress it enough. It's just a great time to celebrate. Dan,
So,
I real quick, can I mention something on the STA?
Yeah.
That you talked about with the ASLA or the ALA. Man,
Well,
all these acronyms.
before you change the
ALSA.
subject, I know
Oh,
you're
no, I'm not gonna
referring back
change
to
it. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go
No.
for it.
No, I don't want to change the subject. I just want to let you know that there is partnership happening on a national level, like you talked with tabling at the landscape architect here in
Right.
Colorado.
Right.
And that's an opportunity. So just wanted to bring that up. I'll stop.
Okay. So I'm looking at our work plan, and according to the work plan, the ICAW subcommittee is Clinton, Wynn, who's not here, and Megan. So if you have if you're planning something, let one of those folks know, please, so that we can all be aware of it. So now I want to just open it up to anyone else who attended the USCC conference and would like to, if it was the first time you attended, or maybe the last time, or you had a incredible aha moment that you want to share. If anyone wants to make any comments about something they learned or saw at USCC, go for it. Did anyone attend for the first time in this group?
I'll jump in. It was not my first time, it was my second time. And it was, I thought, really awesome. I think it's just such a great event to network with so many like-minded people, so many people working on how to help support or generate clean compost and incorporating more feedstocks and equipment and all these things. So I thought it was really great. And I'll just say, speaking from my own profession, there was several conversations about compostable packaging, whether composters accept it or not accept it or should accept it, and the conversations and field testing. And they were very well attended, standing room only, and very lively. There was some dramatic stuff that went on. But I walked away from it feeling really positive. I think there was a lot of people who are interested in how to make these types of solutions work and how to, understand the hurdles and challenges. And I mean, they are immense, with just the sheer contamination and the problems of people putting the wrong stuff in the bin. But then also on the flip side, how can we support a more circular system and generate clean compost? And I talked to a lot of compost manufacturers around the country who are doing some really unique things. And so and then I saw them talking to each other. So I thought it was overall really great conference.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah,
Anybody else? Go ahead.
yeah, Dan, I'll jump in. I mean, this was my fifth conference, and talking with Frank, this was the largest attended conference in history, and it's only growing. And I think what's incredible about the USCC is the different committees that you can be a part of, and the they keep continuing to grow as well. And like Megan said, there was some heated conversation, some open conversation about compostables and about contamination in the stream, and also just talking through the benefits of compost use. I mean, like the conversation's continually growing, which is awesome for our industry, and more people are becoming aware. And yeah, if you haven't attended that conference, or if you haven't been able to be a part of some of the committees that are a part of it, it's just a great thing to engage in. And what I love about the composting industry is we're getting bigger, but we're still a really big, close family, and it's pretty great. So yeah, it's just a great conference. I appreciate it every year.
Next year, by the way, it's in Phoenix, so significantly closer than Daytona. USCC tries to alternate between coasts and then occasionally somewhere mid-continent. So yeah, Phoenix next, either late January or early February. I can't remember the dates.
I'll chime in, Dan, since I
Go
don't
ahead.
talk much anymore. As a
I
former
would just, sorry.
I'm just saying, as a former board member of the USCC, I've been to pretty much 20 some of them. And I was also thought, well, this is one of the best. And I really appreciated the tracks that we had on compostable products. I thought it was lively, but it was very professionally done and managed. And I thought we had great conversations at the table I was at. And I would just recommend that if any of you are not a member of the USCC, you should be. And that's part of this whole thing with the RC, I know, as well on our membership thing, but please join. There's several levels that you can join on, but voices are heard there, and they do hear all the voices. I want to point that out. So just kudos to the USCC.
Erica?
This was my second time going, and I think one of the, besides the technical aspects and, you know, the networking, which is loads of fun as well, I always come away really inspired. And I found the opening keynote, Dee Purshouse, was particularly inspiring and kind of reminding, and she gave a talk, it was called How the Structural and Functional Integrity of Soil Provides Climate Resilience. And to me, it was just a really good reminder of why I'm in this work. And I've been in climate work for 20 years now. And I just really loved it. I've totally been stalking her on every social media platform and check her website like daily, because she has all these different podcast interviews she does. So I'll put her information in the chat for others who didn't get to attend, in case you want to, you know, look at some of the stuff and inspiring words that she had for, I would guess, why a lot of us are in this industry. And so I find it a really good mix of being reminded of why we're doing this, and then all the technical stuff that I really learn every time is super helpful. So yeah, I would encourage others to go if you can make it. I know it's the hall and you have to invest in it, but I find it well worth it.
Thanks, Erica. Anyone else want to make one last word on the USCC conference?
Sure, I'll pipe in. This was actually my first one, Dan. It was awesome. I was blown away. There was just, my only complaint was there was too many interesting things I wanted to go to that were at the same time. So that was hard to choose. But the most unique thing I got out of it was just so special to be able to go and hear these PhD candidates discussing firsthand like their brand new fresh research that they've just done, and to get to ask them questions and just hear directly from the people doing the research that then trickles down to us who are making compost was so cool. And I definitely want to go back and get more of that.
Great, thank you all. Okay, I'm going to give the last word. If you are thinking to yourself, that's for the big guys. My operation is just me, or I'm so little. I will say that the membership is, there's a really strong sector now that is small haulers, small compost manufacturers, entrepreneurs. So there, and there's lots of stuff that is directed specifically for folks in those situations, in those positions. So I think it is. I love how broadened, how much broader their perspective is. That I've done almost as many as Bob, of almost about 20 years. And I'd say the perspective has gotten considerably wider. Okay, so let's move on. We do not have Sean to talk about the upcoming compost operator training course. That is May 13th through 17th at Mesa County Fairgrounds in Grand Junction. Jennifer or anybody else, does anyone else want to say anything about planning or what's going on? Give any updates?
Oh, sorry, Dan, I don't really have any.
Okay, no problem. I just thought I'd see. Okay.
I'm excited for it. I think we're moving along and starting to get some folks, some sponsors. So that's I know there's going to be a lot of the equipment manufacturers are starting to reach out to me to find out what kind of accommodations that they have, and so there'll be a lot of equipment, and so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think where we are is, we still could use some sponsors. We're doing great though, from what I've heard. So thank you to everybody who's worked on that, especially Sean. I do think certainly, I don't know how, I think we probably hit all the equipment that's within range, but that can be represented. But there's other types of entities that can sponsor as well. So if you have someone in mind who might be a good sponsor, reach out to me or Sean, and we will. I think there's a sponsor sign up on the website, which is a segue to our website improvements. Sandy, do you want to mention what you've been up to, what you and Allie have been up to?
Sure, yeah, and I couldn't have done this without Allie. So she and her lightning fast, just kind of editing as we go, doing our conversations that we've had. But I did just stick a link in the chat for the website as it currently stands. I can share the screen too, if that's helpful, but it might be easier for everyone to just pull it up to take a quick look if you haven't already. Again, many thanks to Allie to help kind of redesign the way this looks a little bit and hopefully consolidate it. And just so everybody knows, it's as you can see, it's nested under the Recycle Colorado website because we are, part of Recycle Colorado. So it's our pages that were built under the Recycle Colorado kind of theme here. And we just work to kind of try to make it a little easier to navigate and kind of make it organized in a fashion that's a little easier to find what people might be looking for, whether you're a current member or a prospective member. I can certainly answer a lot of questions. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can click any of the buttons to learn more about what the Colorado Composting Council is, what we do, how to become a member, and why you should become a member. The list of all the meetings and events. Thank you, Allie. And I'll certainly, Allie, jump in if you want to add anything as well. There are a few little tweaks that we might want to still make to it, and we're talking kind of about a phase 2 about how to kind of streamline communications with kind of the various groups, the Facebook group and the Google group and the newsletter email that we use. It's kind of something that I think that the leadership group will think through a little bit and maybe bring back to the next meeting. But in the meantime, we're just trying to make it easier to use. And I'm thinking about it. One thing that Allie and I do still need some help with around this is some more kind of copy, some more things to put under the who section and the what we do sections. If anybody has any suggestions, I think there is, and I don't remember where it is at this point, Ally, but there was a section where we could go and, oh, thanks, she's just kind of previewing it for y'all. There's a section where you can go and actually send like newsletter information to Rook, which I guess we'll get to in the agenda in a minute as well. There you go. Have an idea, want to share content. Wow, we are a good pair, Ellie. Nice job. Do you want to add anything, Ellie, to what I've been saying, or?
No, I think you kind of covered it. Yeah, I think just kind of covering things on the resources page, like if there's anything you want us to add or change. I know Clinton sent me a bunch, which was super helpful. So we got the, I don't know, it's on the USCC page, the new STA logo and the brand guide. So I could easily add that. So if you have anything that you want to add, just send it to me and like copy that you want with it. Because I'm not an expert in composting, but I try to be. So I need your lingo and whatnot to add to that. But yeah, that's kind of what we have.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or ideas? I mean, we're always open to other creative ways to portray our work and information. And I love Dan's idea about eventually, having doing some testimonials we could add on there as well to add some further interest. And just trying to make it more functional and look a little bit more professional too, I think was a big point for what we were doing.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Sandy and Ally. Yeah, very much needed and much needed improvements, and it's looking good. Okay, I'm gonna pass off. Since we have Liz and Jace here, I'm gonna give them opportunities to give updates should they like. But first of all, Clinton or Liz, would you like to give an update on what's happening with EPR? Did we lose Clinton? There he is. He's trying.
He's trying. Clinton, you don't want me putting words in your mouth. You know you want to do the update. Uh-oh, he's trying. I'll start talking and hopefully he'll just jump in when he comes back. Where we are with the producer responsibility is the public comment period has ended. Recycle Colorado submitted a letter to CDPHE saying, whatever scenario you choose, we stand to vastly improve the situation here in Colorado. So approve a scenario and let's just keep going forward, because even the lowest scenario is doubling what we have going on right now. And we think that all the scenarios offer merit. So we did not make a specific recommendation as an entity for a specific scenario. And part of that was a decision by the board of directors that there were diverse opinions within our membership about which scenario was the best. There was agreement amongst our membership that in a scenario, we want to keep this program moving forward. So that's what we submitted a letter, and we included a little bit about composting and the need for compost infrastructure and how this legislation will help finance moving that forward. So the public comment period has ended. CDPHE is now aggregating all of that public comment, and they are doing an internal evaluation. It's my understanding that they are going to make a recommendation to the director, Jill Ryan, what scenario they think she should recommend to the JBC. Ultimately, it's up to CDPHE's director, Jill, which scenario to move forward. So she may go with staff, I would expect her to go with staff recommendation, but she doesn't have to. She can choose something else based on her criteria. And then in the first 2 weeks of March, she's expected to go before the Joint Budget Commission and say, this is a scenario we recommend. Do you agree with that? And then they say yes, and then we keep going. Or they say yes, but, and they tweak it. Or there is the possibility, however unlikely, that they say no. Based on all of my conversations and conversations with Eliza, I am not expecting a no. I am expecting, all signs are pointing to JBC saying, yep, let's do it. But in terms of which scenario CDPHE will recommend, I don't know. And I don't know that we will know until like right before they present. So that's where things are at the moment. And because it's the JBC, the Joint Budget Commission or Committee, Joint Budget Committee, they don't normally take testimony. Most of the committees throughout the state and Senate, or the House and Senate, when they're evaluating legislation, they bring experts in and they open it up to public comment. That's not the standard for the Joint Budget Committee. So I don't know that there will be an opportunity for anybody to say anything. If there is, we certainly will reach out to the leadership at COCC and say, do you want to send somebody to say something? And of course, all of our members are always welcome to go talk to legislators about any of the issues on their own behalf. Back to what Sandy was talking about in terms of not violating our lobbying numbers. That's only when you're going to represent the COCC or representing Recycle Colorado. If you are going forward to represent Compost Colorado or the city of Grand Junction or BPI, that's a separate thing and doesn't count against our limit of lobbying, if that makes sense. But when you present something in writing or you say out loud, I'm here on behalf of the Compost Council, or I'm here on behalf of Recycle Colorado, then that falls in the column of this is considered lobbying activities by our organization. Did I muddy the waters? Did I make it clear? Okay. Is that what you were looking for, Dan?
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh.
Yeah, and Clint, looks like Clint's with us, so I'm going to pass it off to him here.
I still don't know what I did. I hit a button. Now I see everybody and I couldn't unmute. And sorry, technical difficulties on my end here. No, Liz, I think there's no conflict of interest. We can both talk about this. But the only thing I would add in there, Dan, is if you guys, they did just finalize the needs assessment, and that information can be viewed and read at the producer responsibility website, CDPHE's website. So there's an executive summary, and then the whole thing is on there as well. Element 14 is the compost section. And then there's two other sections on contamination, which is element 4. And there's another one on services and costs, which is element 7. I'd highly recommend you go look at those and read them and get familiar with what has been looked at. As I think Liz can speak to this too, as we move forward, if depending on what decision they make, if it does move forward, and then there'll be a lot of discussion of looking through the program. How do we implement this? And that's where I think there's going to be a lot of conversation on making this all work in the state of Colorado, especially when it comes to compostables and supporting the compost manufacturer on how to make that all work. So a lot more to come. There's a lot unknowns. So, but again, I'm speaking from the compost manufacturer perspective. So, yes, please stay engaged is another thing I would say too. That's very important as a compost manufacturer, stay engaged in this whole thing.
And Clinton, back me up on, or correct me, fill in the blanks. One of the things about this whole process is at this stage, the needs assessment has a lot of big gaps when it comes to the compost industry, how this is going to be implemented when it comes to compostable packaging, how it's going to be implemented in terms of improvements to compost facilities. lots of unknowns, lots of unknowns. And that is somewhat due to the legislation not being very specific. It wasn't nearly as prescriptive in what
Yeah.
the needs assessment needed to look at as and what the scenario needed to suggest. And so since it wasn't prescribed, a lot of gaps.
Exactly. Like it was very fast, and it was very focused on contamination reduction and processing of compostables at the compost manufacturer. It did not include the hauling side of it, you know, so there's a lot of there's a lot of unknowns, and that's where, as we move forward, if we move forward, there's an enormous opportunity for the state of Colorado and all of us here, a lot of people on this call, to get engaged and start thinking this through. How do we make it work? How do we make it work well? And I think that's important to know. So,
And I know both Clinton and I will be sure that we push information as soon as we have it out to this group. But as the program plan starts to come together, so what's happening right now is there's very broad strokes. These are scenarios. The Joint Budget Commission will direct CDPHE to pursue a scenario. And then the real meat of the matter gets done. We flesh out the program plan. And I have no doubt there will be specific meetings of the advisory board and the producer responsibility organization that are solely focused on compost and how this is going to roll out from the compost. So I would hope that this group and those who are part of this group but can't be here today will participate, tell Clinton, come to the meetings, submit comments. We want as much feedback as possible to ensure that it's a tangible and substantial improvement to the system.
yep.
I have a question. At what point is the program cost locked in? I had the impression from last year or 2 years ago when it was passed that when the JBC reviews it, that's when you lock in the cost. But it seems like, you know, from reading their needs assessment, it seems like that's not there. So do you understand when that happens? You know, specifically, you know, the big question is, well, what is the cost of composters to manage compostable products?
Liz, correct me if I'm wrong. But Dan, that has yet to be determined. And with the needs assessment on a broad scale, it can go up and down when it comes to the cost. Right now, it's just kind of setting what they determined to be out there. But again, there's a lot more that has to happen before that is determined. Liz, can you speak more to that?
Yeah, that's correct, Clinton. The scenarios are to give the Joint Budget Commission a rough idea of the relative costs. It gives a bit of a bottom, like there's no way it's going to cost less than. And then it also scales up and says it could cost as much as, but there's no locking in of costs. Where the locking in of costs will come is part of the program plan. And what will happen there is there will be some digging into what exactly is going to get paid for on what time frame, and therefore what kind of fees need to be assessed to the producers. And where the locking in will come is once the producer responsibility program has collected fees from producers, that's the budget they have to work with, right? Once they've collected the monies, then that's the money they have to spend. And that's where you'll get that like locked in, but there's nothing in statute that locks any of this budget in. It's a matter of figuring out realistically, what do we need to collect to pay for the things we want to do on the time scale we want to do them, and then assessing those fees and then dispersing them. But I see that Alex wants to jump in.
I could not have explained it any better, Liz. I was just going to add that the needs assessment did include towards the end some kind of rough capital expenditures categories for compost facilities of different sizes. So I think that might be of interest to some of you if you haven't you scroll through the whole 600 pages. I think it's towards the end in the appendices. These are sort of rough proposals, but I think at least maybe to your point, Dan, they're starting to like think about, big numbers and what they might look at and what some of the top priorities might be based on these.
Yeah, and Alex, I think that should be in element 7, but it's also referenced in element 14 as well. Just to speak to that too, was like one thing that I was helping push back from my perspective was, this infrastructure needs to happen now, not later. And in all the scenarios, it was changed to 2030, not 2035. And that's a big deal. Like, it's something we have to think about now and start working on now versus pushing it out another 10 years. So, because we all know that compostables are going to increase quickly and it's important. So yeah, there's still a lot to unpackage. Hey, no pun intended. No, it's a lot to unpackage. Boom. It's a good one.
Okay, anyone else on EPR? Liz, do you have any more? Oh, hang on. Cut the plastic.
Yeah, sorry, on the phone, I haven't figured out how to change it. Brian Loma, Cut the
Brian,
Plastic
yes,
Analyst here.
thank you.
I just wanted to highlight in agreement, what Clint said there about the infrastructure now. I just left the Plastics Council meeting that was the hour before this, and the concern for infrastructure, for not hauling materials from the west slope to the front range were concerns, right? Having localized processing. The plastics people mirrored these conversations. So I think that's an important thing to recognize, is the immediate need for expanded infrastructure statewide.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else? Okay, Liz, is there any other updates that you want to give for RC?
I do. I want to talk about the summit. Is this a good
Okay.
time to talk about the
Sure.
summit? So at the moment, a couple of things that not everyone knows, and so I apologize for those of you who are hearing this for the 10th time. We are structuring the summit a little bit differently this year. Instead of it being programming all day, we're going to break it into programming for 2/3 of the day. So from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m., there will be sessions and workshops and networking opportunities. But then from 1 or 2 o'clock, depending on which tour, there will be a suite of tours offered to everybody. So we're going to actually disperse and get out in the field, and you'll have at this moment, we've got 4 different tours scheduled. We're trying to incorporate materials, compost, C&D, and/or electronics into each one of the tours so that you get a little bit of everything, no matter what tour you choose. And so because of that, I know people are really excited about tours. One of the things that we've heard consistently from folks is, I want to get out there and see what people are doing. I want the opportunity to see with my own eyes and ask questions about operators, about how you're making this happen. And we're really excited to offer that. That comes at the cost of programming time. So we've got a little bit less programming time than we've had in years past because we're making time to go do these tours. At the moment, I only have 2 45-minute sessions scheduled on the organics track. There is room for 2 more 90, what is that? There's room for 3 hours, almost 3 hours more in organics, if you guys want to do that, but then I'm not going to be able to go beyond that because we're making time for the tours. What we have on the docket right now is the city of Aspen is going to do a session to tell everybody how their organic span is going. And I believe, although this is still being debated, I believe Jace is going to work with some consultants to do an update on the study that CDPHE is in the middle of to look at advancing the organics management plan and what it's going to take to advance it in various places. That one is still a little bit of a question mark, but we're holding that space for them at the moment. So, and I don't expect y'all to know, you know, I'm just throwing it out here right now. I don't expect you to come back with me, but we do need to get this dialed in the next 2 weeks, because we've got to start pushing out advertising and get people to register. So I wanted to invite you, if you go to, and I'll bet Allie will put this in the chat as I'm talking. If you'll go to the summit page, there is a submit an idea button, and that makes it easier for the summit committee to track everybody who wants to present something. So if you don't have an idea right now, certainly you can go to our webpage, click on that button, just enter it into the spreadsheet, or you can always email myself or Allie at a later date. And if the compost group does not want to fill a whole track with compost programming, I certainly can fill it with other things, but I want to hold that space until you tell me you don't want it.
Liz, I think we should have a session that specifically focuses on compost use and compost use in Colorado. And I will help, but I gotta find some people. But anybody on this call that wants to join in a talk on that, I think it's really important from the COC's perspective that we continue to educate Colorado on the best use practices for compost. And it's not just in the garden, there's a lot of other uses, and we got to continue to help educate. So that's really important. Anybody on this call that wants to do that with me.
Do you see that as a panel? Do you see that as a 45-minute thing, a 90-minute thing?
I think it could be done in 45 minutes, and we bring in different examples of use, and how compost is applied, like talking about technical parameters, talking about STA certified compost, why that's important. You know, the different industries throughout Colorado that are using it. We could dive in, but I think it's important, really important.
Okay.
Yeah, Mesa County would participate in that session. We are doing that study that we got grant funding for, that's looking at compost use specifically in agriculture industry and water saving. So by the time the conference comes around, we'll have been a year and a half into a 2-year grant. So we could talk about that.
Anyone else have, excuse me, does anyone else have brainstorm ideas? Not that you have to commit to organizing the whole thing, but does anyone feel like we need X? Want to throw it out there? See if anyone runs with it.
I do.
Go for it.
I can't present on this, but I know I've been talking with the municipalities and planning departments and how we can get them to include compost language in some of their building requirements. And I know there is a lot of benefits to using compost for stormwater, best management practices for stormwater management. And the hurdle that I'm running into when I talk to the planning department is that they want specs. They want to know, well, how big does the berm need to be? What kind of filter socks, what are the specs for that? And so they keep giving me pushback because I don't have engineered specs for them. But I think that would be a great topic on how compost can be used. And if we can figure out a way to get some kind of specifications that we can give to planning departments, I think that a lot of our municipalities would be open to putting that as a required use first, or something they could do for stormwater management.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Bob Yost. We have roomfuls of specifications for compost utilization, compost blankets, compost filter berms, socks. we've developed over the many, many years have been involved. So I'll get with Clinton after this meeting, but we'll get a lot of those to you. And I think your idea is very good. It's time to revisit that. It's not it's a well-timed question because there's been some updates to specifications nationally, and especially with our work with the Architects Association, landscape architects, that needs to be brought in and communicated to the market in Colorado. So thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, there is some of that, those CO or some of the CREF specification return on investment have been put on the website for the COCC. But then like what Bob just mentioned there, part of the ASLA's climate action plan, USCC is working directly with them with compost use and soil amendment requirements and technical data to put into that climate action plan. So like the USCC signed an MOU with the ASLA to work on this together through their climate action plan, which is fantastic. More to come. But yeah, like again, that's the kind of information I think we need to distill down and have presented at the conference here in Colorado.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I have captured that in our spreadsheet, but I saw Megan came off mic. I'll bet you've got an idea. Megan Ibach.
Yes, I actually just emailed my team because I think we've been meaning to submit something anyways. I think the theme this year is overcoming obstacles for circularity, something like that, right?
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
we'll submit something and obviously let the planning committee decide because there is way more content I'm sure that we could all talk about. But we have our contamination mitigation program that we are really trying to get into everyone's hands and mindset, including our competitors, including everybody, to really systematically look at contamination from the upstream, because we have so many businesses trying to do the right thing, trying to reduce their environmental impact, but they need support to know how to do that. And then compost manufacturers need clean streams, but they want more food scraps. So how can we make all that work? So I think we will submit something. And again, totally cool if it doesn't get selected, because I know there's a lot of juicy content. But that would definitely be something I'd love to talk about. And considering how popular the packaging conversation was at USCC, maybe it would be interesting for Colorado members, and again, maybe not. So.
What about on the tour side, Liz? Are there compost related tours?
Yes, we're going to go see Jamie's facility, the Compost Queen, and she's going to explain to us how she has changed her process over the past year. Some of that is a result of the grant funding she got through, I think it was Forward, Jamie, is that right? I'm picking on you all of a sudden out of nowhere. Yeah, okay. And that has been a dramatic change to her processes. And I know people are going to be really interested in that. So that's a stop on one of the tours. One of the other tours, it's not quite compost related, but it's organics related. There's a food rescue organization in Colorado, or in Fort Collins. And so we're going to stop by there and talk about how they're making that work to divert the material before it gets to the point where it can be composted. And then we're going to make that part of the CSU program. So the Colorado State University has a pretty long-standing organics diversion program, especially in their dining halls. And they upped it over the last couple of years to increase their food rescue. So they now have a program that I'm going to do a disservice to because I haven't seen the whole pitch. But as I understand it, there is a way for students to come and claim food that's left over from events that the dining hall services cater. And then whatever's not left over, and then of course the food scraps all get collected separately and shipped out to their off-site compost facility that's owned and operated by CSU. So we'll talk about that and talk about their signage in particular, their use of compostables, where they're at with incorporating compostables into their effort. And then the Larimer County landfill has some composting up there, so that'll be part of that tour as well. So like I said, we're trying to make it a part of any tour you choose. There's some element of organics diversion with all of the tours. But if you know of, like, if we could put together an all compost tour and you wanted to pursue that, and we could make it needs to be at least 3 hours, and it needs to be within 20 minutes driving in Fort Collins, which puts A1 kind of out of the mix there. We're a little bit further than that. Certainly.
While we're on it, does anyone want to throw out another can't miss Fort Collins organics landmark that we should visit? Kathy's quietly offering vermicomposting tour.
Okay, I will follow up with you, Kathy, about what that would look like and how we might incorporate it.
Anyone else with ideas? Okay.
Hey, Dan, I fell off just for a second, but I have one more idea. I just want to bring up the microbial activity and what we did last year with the microscope, and Sean Bruckman brought in her analyst. That was well received, and there was a lot of people in that room. I just want to bring that one up again. I just thought that was really a great presentation, and a lot of people connected with the benefit of compost with that one. So I just bring that one up again. It was awesome.
Possibly some kind of follow-up to that. Okay. All right, last call for tour and/or talk ideas. Fantastic. Okay, well, that was a great conversation. Thank you, Liz. I am now going to turn the floor over to Jace to give an update on what's happening at CDPHE.
Hey all. Some good news from today for those that don't know. The Section 14 regulatory updates were approved by the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission this morning. Thanks to you all for letters of support. Big shout out thanks to Julie for providing a comment of support. We had a couple of questions about some of the engineered features in there, but essentially the reg revisions as we proposed them passed. So I will send out, thank you guys. I will send out emails to all the stakeholders in the compost world, and I'll send that along to Allie as well too, so she can share with membership. Once I have a better idea of when those changes will actually promulgate, so the actual true effective date of those rules, so folks can start doing all the things that they want and or need to do with those changes. So just for those that don't know, we're adding in Class 1 food waste compost operations. So an on-farm and a not on-farm one both can take about 5,000 cubic yards at any given time. So if you have any questions about that and you're not already in process working on that, let me know and I'll kind of run you through what the requirements will be for that. We did also add, for those of you that already have compost facilities that are of a permitted class, we have a training requirement now, certified operator training requirement now for all compost facilities. So one person at your facility needs to be have completed some kind of certified operator training that needs to be similar to the U.S. Compost Council's certified operator training course, like the one that's going to be in May, which I plan on attending as well. So if you want to hang out, go
Jace,
attend.
it's the CREFs.
CREF, that's
CMTC.
right. That's right. And if you have questions about what qualifies for that, reach out to me. I'll let you know. I think we want it to be something similarly robust not, you know, Jim's tailgate training, something that has a kind of a soup to nuts on operations and dealing with problems and siting and all that kind of stuff. So that'll go into effect. There's like a 12-month lag time for that one to go into effect. So within the next 12 months, if you don't have anybody at your site that meets that, go and get that training done. And then the last thing that will go into effect immediately is this will also affect all of the existing facilities, is the testing requirement for finished compost. Now we are requiring that everybody tests for both of the biological indicators in your finished compost. So that's going to be testing for fecal and for salmonella. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. If you have an operations plan, specifically an engineering design and operations plan, within 12 months, you need to update that plan to show that you are testing for both. So it just needs to say in your finished compost testing requirements that you are testing for both of those things. That's it from the regs. So look for an email from me when I have an idea. I think that will be effective probably at the very beginning of March. But if you're looking at doing a class 1 facility under those new rules, let me know, and I'm happy to chat with you about what that looks like for you. Next up is the Organics Management Plan 2.0. I don't have a ton of updates on that right now, still on the info gathering stage. What I will say is that the stakeholder processes are probably going to happen pretty soon, either at the end of March or the very beginning of April, just based on the timing that we have to kind of present something useful and get useful information back and incorporate it back into that study. I don't think it's probably going to be a lot of stakeholder meetings like the last go around. I think this will probably be more like 2 stakeholder meetings. And we're still kind of honing in on what those are going to look like exactly. I do want to make sure that there's a couple of elements in there that get discussed, just because I think some of them are going to be really relevant to the final outcome of this study. And I think those are primarily going to be, you know, what are things that need to go on this toolkit, the infrastructure development toolkit, that would actually be functional and useful for folks throughout the state. And then also, if there is ban language, I think there will be ban language, written really any policy language that we can have kind of already workshopped a little bit before those meetings. I want those to be pretty well stakeholdered through these 2 meetings as well. So I anticipate those will be kind of the heavy subjects for these 2 stakeholder meetings. So I want to make sure everybody knows about that and has that kind of, they're thinking about it coming up, and I'm hoping we'll have some dates here pretty soon, maybe in the next week or 2, for people to sign up for those. We would love to hear all of your input on whatever it is that we end up presenting in those, so that we can have a kind of a more robust, user-fed process for the study. Just like the last study, there's not going to be, we're not going to have time or the ability to put it out for public comment before we publish it. They have to get the first draft to us in June. We have June to kind of comb over it and ask for any changes, and then the final draft has to be to us July 1st. And then we have to submit it to the legislature August 1st. So it's going to be really tight turns there. So we'll effectively be using the stakeholder process as kind of the public input piece for that study. So that's it. I don't think I have anything else. So yeah, if you have any questions about the reg updates, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you want to talk about class 1, reach out to me as well.
Thank you, Jace. And I'll just reiterate, congratulations to all of us for the roles that we played in the reg review, whether you worked directly on it or you maybe modeled the need. You know, and thank you very much to Jace for your guidance and for your hearing and seeing what is needed in Colorado. And I feel like we are a much more compost friendly state today. So that's super exciting.
It feels nice to have something accomplished, right?
Amen. Yeah.
Now all you guys got to build all these facilities.
Right. Okay. So the final thing on the agenda is the member newsletter, which we try to put out monthly, COCC member newsletter, I should be clear. Julie has been doing a wonderful service to all of us in taking that newsletter on and having her employee Rook write that up. And I would just say that, oh yeah, we do have another on the agenda. Thank you, Naomi. So I would like to just put in a plug. If you have an update for your business or your program or anything that you think that would be useful information to the membership, I'd strongly encourage you to send that to Rook and ask him to put it in the newsletter. Rook's email address is in the minutes. It is service@elementscompost.com. I think this is a really important means of communicating and not just going over the big important highlights, but providing, again, like the testimonials on the website. I think it really adds a human element and creates a lot of interest. Like, we want to hear what your organization is doing. We truly do. So that is useful information for all of us. So please utilize that, and thank you to Julie and Rook for doing that service.
Dan, I have a quick question about that.
Yes, please go ahead.
What time of the month does the newsletter come out?
Roughly the second week of the month, usually. Yeah, usually within the first 15 days. So if you get something to us by the first week, we can typically get it in there.
Sweet. Thanks, Julie.
And Julie did put Rook's email address in the chat if you're searching around for it. Okay. So I was wrong. We have one more agenda item, and that is financials update, which is back to Julie.
Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
End this on a really exciting note. It's early in the year, so I don't have a ton to update you on, but just again, a reminder that the financials are updated pretty much monthly in the shared COCC Google Drive. There's a financials folder in the 2024 folder. And so just as a reminder for folks that haven't seen the budget for 2024 yet, it's in this second column here, kind of what we've outlined as far as revenue and expenses. Just a couple things to point out. COCC sponsorship is a line item that we're always looking for folks to sponsor the Compost Council, either through the Recycle Colorado Summit or through other events and things that we're hosting. We do have a separate call out for the COTC training and the sponsorship that comes in through those channels, so we can track it separately. But we certainly need everyone's help on this call to help recruit sponsorships for both the Recycle Colorado Summit and the COTC training. We do have some membership income trickling in. I think we just got a check from USCC for our membership share from last year. So these numbers will continue to go up, but just again, another reminder, if you haven't paid your Colorado Compost Council dues yet, look for an email or an invoice from Allie, but if you haven't seen it, you can contact her. If you're not a member, highly encourage you to join so that we can support the other work that we're doing, which then of course is all outlined in the expenditures component of the budget. Our biggest expense typically is related to lobbying and the consulting fees that we pay for that. So we've got a big chunk budgeted there if we need it, a small amount for marketing and promotion, contracting for marketing purposes, and then a bit of an admin overhead fee back to Recycle Colorado. So budgeting an income, but this is all contingent upon those sponsorship and membership dollars coming in. Right now, we're ahead on the budget. We're looking good, in good shape overall. And I think if I go this direction, nope, that's the wrong way. Hang on. Just a quick look, we do have a restricted fund balance at about $18,565. So we've got a nice nest egg that we can use for expenses as they come up. But this is something we want to keep building upon so that we've got those dollars in the bank when we have bigger expense needs related to lobbying or marketing or whatever it might be. So any questions on the financials? Great, then I'll leave it there.
I'll just circle back about the sponsorships. I mentioned earlier that we could still use some sponsors for the training, and that CREF has a new sponsor fee sharing arrangement, brand new. I think starting with our training, where or California, I think. Anyway, rather than a 50-50 split, it's for your first sponsor, it's a 50-50 split. And for your second sponsor, the chapter keeps 75%, and the third sponsor and anything beyond that, the chapter keeps 90%. So again, if you have someone that in mind that you think would be interested in sponsoring the event coming up in Grand Junction, please reach out. And then, of course, if you have a thought for someone who might be interested in doing an annual sponsorship of the whole COCC, then we get to keep 100% of that. So that is good as well. Okay, what have we missed in this agenda? Is there other? We didn't actually go over the work plan, and I don't think we need to troll through it at this point. But is there other stuff that people were expecting or announcements they want to make? Anything? I'll leave it. I'll open the meeting before we end here.
I could do a quick LEAC update if folks are interested.
Please do.
If I can find my notes on that again. Too many pages open as usual. Bear with me all. Where did that page go? I can't even see all my pages. Well, just in general, kind of in terms of I'm sorry, you guys are really frustrated. Oh, there they are. So in terms of the needs assessment, I know that Linda at the USCC has been trying hard to try to put together an official USCC letter around this. But with the timeline and with the gaps in information that everybody identified in our earlier conversation, she's been struggling a bit to do that. And we'll continue to work on that. But there's a bunch of kind of differing viewpoints coming in. So she's trying to reconcile all that. And I think the USCC is going to still submit a letter. It'll just obviously still be late, and not sure what effect it would have on the deadline that we just had yesterday. But there is still some intention for the USCC to weigh in on this. So they're still working on that. Also working on comments to the EPA's waste reduction program, because as has been pointed out by lots of people in the industry, that the current model that the EPA uses for the WARM program is really outdated and inaccurate, and it grossly underestimates the climate benefits of composting and recycling and the impacts of landfilling. So the USCC's Linda's working hard on some comments towards the WARM program for the EPA as well, to help hopefully encourage people to use data that's not 30 years old on that. So that would be helpful.
And is she going to circulate that?
Yes, she will. I don't think it's due until March 15th, I want to say. But yes, she is working on that to circulate around. And Also just recently submitted comments to the national draft strategy for reducing food loss and waste and recycling organics. So focusing on the importance of composting as a food waste recycling solution. So all of these things in Linda's hopper for writing letters and making comments, as well as tracking all the bills across the country, of which there are too many to list here at this time. But definitely lots happening on the LEAC side always too.
Julie?
Yeah, and I may need a little help on this update from Brandy or others, but I know we're not working on a compost specific policy or legislative push this session, but the RREO and forward kind of reauthorization bill, I think, is pretty applicable to a lot of folks in this group. So just a quick update on that. The proposal is coming from CDPHE to essentially combine those two boards into one program, and combine the funding as well, and then still be able to dole that out as grants. Their original proposal included some changes and actually a reduction in the fees that are applied to waste hauling at landfills and how that feeds into REO and forward. So I know Recycle Colorado put together a letter with recommendations on the fee component and also for how they construct the board of this new entity. I haven't heard in the last couple of weeks where the bill language stands or any of that, but I just wanted this group to be aware that that bill is in process.
My understanding is that the fee is reduced for Front Range counties because we don't, we're not paying both REO and forward. Am I wrong about that?
I think that is what was proposed. And again, maybe Brandy or somebody else can speak to the details. I think there was also another maybe larger reduction that was proposed by CDPHE. It also has to do with the CPI increases and things like that. So there's some negotiating going on around how the fees are going to shake out, I think.
Yeah, I can speak up really quick too. This is Brandy. Yes, they are still, like, CDPHE is still kind of taking feedback from folks and whatnot. And I haven't been paying attention this week, to be completely honest, but I don't think it's been introduced yet. So they are still trying to get everything all kind of figured out.
Okay, and I will note that Nick put in the chat another possible organics tour site would be New Belgium in Fort Collins, which has a digester. So yeah, that might be a good one, Nick. Thanks for that comment.
And lots of good
Okay.
beer.
You had good beer, yeah. The tour ends well. I will say.
Win-win.
Okay, anybody else?
I just put in, oh, and I see someone Kim responded. I just put in the chat that if anyone is thinking about doing an in-person event for ICAW that week, or maybe even the weekend after, I am going to Waste Expo, which is Monday through Wednesday. But I would be more than happy to help plan any kind of in-person event, education event, especially focused on just like general public. That's kind of like my bread and butter in my last job. And yeah, just would love to support if anyone wants to do something like that and they kind of want a little extra support to plan something, let me know. And thanks, Kim.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. Any others? All right, well, let's end this 20 minutes early. And thank you, everybody, for attending. It's been great to see you all and some real good input. So I should have the date of the next quarterly meeting in front of me. I don't, but I'll see you in about 3 months. All right, bye all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.